Welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast, a podcast about flying in midlife and aviation in that same stage with old folks. My name is Chris Moran. I'm the Midlife Pilot on YouTube, and I should have flipped our images around, but on my, let's see.
I'm looking away from you now.
Over here is my friend from Nashville, Tennessee. He drives really old Toyotas and even older airplanes. We didn't drive them. It's Brian Siskin. Good evening to you.
How you doing, buddy?
Buddy, I can't complain. How are you?
Well, I flew 7.3 hours today, so I feel pretty good. I'm not really sure where I am or what's happening, but I'm on the internet talking, so that should be fine. It'll actually probably go just as well as it did with me and my comms today. You ever have days where it's just you're just all over the place with your comms?
Oh yeah. And
you just realize that it's usually a question of just slowing down, or I don't know, just concentrating. I think that after you've been training for a while and then you've been flying for a while, there's a part of it that gets to be a little subconscious, but it doesn't really stay quite rooted there all the time. And it'll kind of like your abilities will kind of float in and out. But I had some interesting interactions at the Asheville airport today, so we'll just leave it at that.
Okay, well, that's fair.
I did fine. I just I got a little talking to. Chris, I'll just go ahead and tell you. I got a little talking to. Well, I just for some
reason. At what
reason,
airport and around what time was that? So I can go ahead and pull up the live ATC recording.
It was basically I'm not used to flying out of airports where you can get flight following from the ground and you have that sort of one extra stop that you're making. And that was kind of what threw me off a little bit. When the ground controller told me the departure frequency, for whatever reason, I just thought he was telling me to go over to departure. So I went up on departure and they were like, "You are the dumbest person in the world. And we would like to congratulate you for embarrassing yourself completely." It was fine. They were very nice, very, very fine controllers, actually. I just was out of my mind.
So did you actually switch to departure?
Yes.
What did you say? I'm just curious. I'm sorry to drag this out. I know you didn't necessarily want to talk about it. What did you say when you called departure from the ground? I'm just curious.
I just said something about, I just sort of like checked in with them and said, I'm ready to, like, sort of told the same thing. I don't know what I was doing.
I see.
Yeah. Because I wasn't, they said departure, but it didn't really register to me that it was departure. I thought that I was going to, I don't know. So anyway.
That's funny.
It was.
Yeah, it happens. That stuff happens.
It was fine.
Yeah, it's all
but
fine.
Man, but can I tell you real quick about my day?
Yes, I'd love to hear about it.
Okay, and hopefully everybody in the chat is interested in hearing about my day. But basically, I flew from Nashville to Asheville, North Carolina today to have lunch with my younger brother, Ben. And this was, a lot of people get this experience early on, like when they first get their license, to be able to take a family member up for a flight. I have not been able to, because nobody lives here or around here. I've not been able to do that yet at all. So today, of all days, was the first time that I took a family member up, somebody that's knew me since I was a young person. And he didn't jump out of the plane and run before we took off. He actually came with me, but it was amazing. So, real quick, he gave me, my father's logbook here. The video audience can see that. And it's got all these cool sort of entries. And, it's funny because for him, he doesn't have aviation knowledge. So he doesn't know what half of this stuff means or what is it relevant at all? But it's got all the stuff in there. And I was kind of just going through it, and I realized that one of the pages was the logbook entry for my brother's first flight with my father.
Oh, wow.
And it was out of a little strip called NC 67, which is a little private grass strip that is about 3 miles from the Asheville airport. I mean, it's right next to it. And so I decided that what we had to do was go overfly this field. And so I took my dad would have been so over the moon. But anyway, took my brother Ben up with the logbook, flew over that airport, and Ben was sort of curious about if any childhood memories would come back of sort of seeing things from this perspective, because you're in this kind of bowl of terrain. It was a really neat airport, really neat experience. And then all the mountain flying I got to do today was just awesome. It's definitely, and in our Discord, I recall, and I'll send a shout out to one dull geek who I don't think is in here right now, but he was reminding me when I go there to make sure that I lean appropriately for takeoff because of density altitude. And it was hot there today, and I did. So
nicely done.
Anyway,
that's very cool.
It was an amazing, amazing experience. I just can't. I don't know. There's just certain times you have in flying, where you can't believe that you get to do it. You realize how hard the work is and how worth it is to do all that. And then to be able to do that in my own plane, and kind of know what's going on. It was just an amazing experience. So that was my day today, Chris.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It was very cool.
What'd you do today?
I worked, so not near as exciting. I did work most of the day from the airport with the intention that I would get about an hour and a half break in the afternoon with the intention of flying. Sure. But that never works out that way. And then work was crazy. And so I didn't get a break. So I did not.
Has it been really windy up there?
It has. It was not today. Today was beautiful, but we've had some of those days, recently that have been a little crazy. But there were 2 of the 3 planes in the club were available while I was there, and just didn't get a chance to fly.
Yeah.
We should tell the podcast audience too that as a reminder, we record every other Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, and a couple of shout outs to folks who I know have been around quite a while, but tonight is their first night joining us live in the chat. Hanging on a Rotor is here, and also Austin Brumley is here, who are shouting out in the chat tonight. So nice. It's awesome to have some new folks in the chat room with us tonight for our talk on, weather, which is a thing that happens.
Oh, can we do that one other housekeeping thing where we invite people to do things? So if you review the podcast, that's super great. If you share it, that's even better. And the audio version, you can go on Anchor and actually become like a monthly supporter as low as 99 cents a month. And, with the numbers we're doing, Chris, we might be millionaires. How are you going to, if we can get our 1 million listeners to just support us with 99 cents a month, what kind of plane are you going to buy with your 500,000? Oh,
probably a 150. That's why didn't we have this discussion? Everybody's like, are you out of your mind? My family didn't want to fly with me. So
crowdfunded 150.
Yeah. Be the nicest 150 you've ever seen, but
152
Aerobat. Sure.
Oh yeah. Just go go full Aerobat. Right?
Yeah. Go all the way.
It's paid for.
Exactly. Generous audience.
Yeah. Now, have you done any aerobatics yet?
I have not. I haven't even done spin training. I'm not even sure it's on my list. Really, I have a couple friends with Cetabrias who have offered multiple times to take me up and do some aerobatic stuff, at least spins. But I have just not took them up on the offer yet. I should probably do that though.
I mean, I imagine that they want to live.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It'd be cool. I just haven't done it.
Yeah. Well,
so I thought it was interesting. In the Discord, there's been a ton of talk this week, specifically, I thought, about weather. There just has been a lot of posts and debates about various weather apps and stuff. And I just thought it might be cool to, seasons changing here. And I thought it might be cool to talk about just a general weather thing, like talk through what, how do you do weather for your flight planning? What apps do you use? What sources do you use? How, what's kind of your routine when planning? And I think we'll open it up. We should encourage everyone who's here live tonight to post in the chat some stuff, your your apps that you like, how do you plan a flight? Like, what's your stages of planning? I think it'll be interesting to hear everybody's take, because I'm sure everybody's got their own kind of routine for how they do it, and I guess it depends on the flight, how long is the flight, et cetera, et cetera. But
it also it's interesting because it depends on so many things. Like, for instance, when I was renting up until recently, you had to really speculate long term on whether, you'd be looking at next week and you're trying to figure out, large scale kind of patterns to give you the most likelihood to even have a chance to fly. And then there's sort of the subcategory of then once the time is sort of approaching, but maybe we can start with like far out. So, and I think this will help people that are renting a lot, but also anybody that's just trying to plan their freaking lives. So
yeah.
If you're, what's the furthest out that you'll even start looking?
Well, I mean,
let's say for like a flying to Nashville or like a bigger trip type of thing. Not just like
a week. I mean, a week really for me is about as, and even then it's almost complete speculation, but I'll do preliminary stuff kind of a week out, prog charts.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff a week ahead. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, so same kind of thing. I mean, strangely enough, as much as aviationweather.gov is great, and there's some tools we'll get into more deeply there, but strangely enough, if I just go to like the native dumb weather app that is on my phone and just go to the 10-day outlook and just try not to, it's almost like you just kind of blur your eyes and just sort of contextually sort of look at it, you can really get a sense pretty quick of high pressure and low pressure and changes that are coming, at least in this part of the country. And this is the thing. I mean, this varies for everybody where you are, but I tend to just start looking at the 10 days out and starting to get a sense of, because at least around this part of the country, and I would imagine for a lot of the East Coast as well, maybe a lot of areas, but it's kind of like, there's just the cycles, and it's just going to be bad. And then it's going to be kind of good. Then it's going to get too good. Then it's going to be bad again. So you just try to figure out where in the parade, that your time frame is sitting. So actually I use prog charts to get a sense of actually weather information, but I also just use basic non-aviation weather tools to very loosely from far away get a sense of what is the general likelihood, or if I'm trying to fly, I should probably put it right in the middle of that week, because I can kind of see, a little bit before and a little bit after. And it could, this is all, we're basically just talking about how to gamble, right? Like it's essentially the house always wins.
Yep. Same. And a lot of folks are saying the same thing. Alyssa Miller and others in the chat, commercial products that are available. I use them too. The weather app on my iPhone or the Weather Channel, but Weather Channel is almost unusable because of ads anymore. But yes, that's kind of like the week to 10-day thing for me. Then what do you do?
Well, and by the way, Ben Singer of The Sage has a great comment here. He's basically saying this time of year, especially, the forecasts seem to change radically over a short period of time. I mean, so it is kind of, that's totally, it's almost hopeless, but we try to just, we strain for anything in our lives, Chris, that give us a feeling of control, and so look at the weather, imagine all you want, plan all you want. But yeah, so that's about it though. For 10 days out, I don't really get too crazy. As it starts to get like, let's say 7 days out, now we're in the wheelhouse of some actual consideration. What do you do when you're about 7 days out?
I still don't go any further than that. A week out. Yeah. I'm still kind of at that
5 days
high level overview. 5 days gets a little more interesting.
Okay. 5 days. Let's start there.
Yeah, 5 days gets a little more interesting because you start to get a little bit more detail. The prog charts start to get a little bit more detailed at that point. I'll tell you, one of the things I like, I mean, this is all aviationweather.gov information in ForeFlight, when you're in actually the imagery section. But what I like to do, I go down through here's my top 4 things. Cloud cover for the region I'm in, but you can't even get into that until like within 24 hours of your flight, right? So that's going to be later. So you do prog charts, probably 5 days out. You can start getting a feel for that. More commercial weather stuff. They've got a little bit more refined forecasting of where the fronts are going to be at that point, but still there's not a whole lot you can do yet on the exacts for precipitation or especially for clouds. Clouds are my nemesis.
Because
I feel like, there's a reason that their forecasts are really only available for such a short time before, because I think they're the most difficult to accurately predict in terms of the amount of coverage.
Yeah.
The exact, just where they're going to be, the height of the base of the clouds. There's so many factors that go into where that's going to be. I've just been burned so many times on inaccurate cloud forecasting. I think more than any other aspect of weather forecasting. And
do you mean, especially for us people that have not gotten our instrument ratings yet, but the VFR dilemma of scattered so many times it's
broken,
and then it becomes broken, and then it's how broken, and and then it's like, is this looking for holes to get through broken, or just a little bit of diverting around these masses,
right?
Yeah, so apparently, and I'm not an expert here, but I'm pretty sure they offer this training that you can get where you can go through them. But I'm going to try that later this year. So,
yeah.
But in the meantime, ultimately, to hedge the instrument rating thing, I don't have an instrument rating, but I can tell you right now, if I did, I would not fly in a whole lot different conditions. It would just be for punching through to get out of somewhere, or I think it's a myth that it just opens up you can just do whatever weather doesn't matter anymore. So anyway, yeah, and then also you have how does the icing sitch work for you in the winter, especially over in your territory?
Oh yeah, it's significant up here. We the freezing level is typically pretty low. It prevents a lot of flights for our instrument rated pilots, especially through the winter season. It's also kind of fun because there is this, like, people play it by ear. Our planes flew a fair amount in some snow conditions this year. You can get away with that if the temperature is low enough and it's the snow is hard and it's going to just not affect the wings, but it becomes a whole different animal up here in the wintertime with freezing level.
I like what Alyssa's saying here about how just easy it is to get obsessive about watching the weather every day. Unless planning a big trip with lots of coordination, the most value comes in the day or two before. Yeah. So, okay. So we kind of talked generally about 5 days out. You're getting into a few things. Now let's talk about 2 days out.
I've left out some key things. We get into this range. Then I'm looking at like, TAFs and the MAWs stuff from individual airports.
Yeah.
Along my route of flight. I won't do a full 4-flight briefing a couple days out because there's still too many missing pieces from that normal briefing, but you can start to get a little bit more data directly that way.
Yeah.
Winds start to get a little bit more dialed in to what that's going to be, winds and temperatures and stuff 2 days out.
We had talked about in the Discord, I think there was a discussion about this, and somebody had worded it pretty well, but I guess a few people chimed in about how in 4-flight specifically, it's kind of like the modeling output, the stuff is super pessimistic, and then the dailies are super optimistic, and then the TAFs are kind of maybe somewhere in between. I think that's kind of how it shook out. It is funny how you're sort of, to almost personify it as here's the pessimistic weather and here's the optimistic
That's
weather.
right.
I think that's good. If people rely on just one or two of those things, I think that's probably not good. You got to get you don't want to have confirmation bias for weather. We're not instructors. We, go to talk to your CFI. We're just hack midlife pilots trying not to kill ourselves and enjoy everything.
That's right.
Is that our new slogan? No, that's not very.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So that's a couple days out for me.
Yeah. So now the other thing, and I'm waiting for the sage to chime in about this, but I'll just go ahead and do it. I know what he's thinking right now. He's thinking, what about the graphical forecasts on aviationweather.gov?
I have a hard time with that tool. I've never got good at
it. So it's, maybe Ben should do like a masterclass because he's got it pretty down. Sam Evans' son, who's a CFI, is a big proponent of the graphical forecasts. That tool, if you're 12 hours out, 18 hours out, 6 hours out, I mean, you can see some things. So that's, another tool. Oh, by the way, another thing that let's say, let's get down to like brass tacks. Like, okay, I'm trying to figure out whether to go to the airport or not. What do you flip coin or what do you do?
Well, we get inside. I mean, the night before, or the day before, then that's when all of the stuff that I really care about, as again, a non-instrument rated, like can't punch through the cloud layer pilot, like what are the cloud forecasts for my region, or where I'm going for the times I'm going to be there. What are the bases? Can I get over the terrain I need to get over under those bases? Here's a good one too. Winds aloft, the things to think about, not just like in terms of picking a cruise altitude, but like I'm starting to pay attention to like the mountain range that I have to cross. What are the heights of the mountains? And then I'm following my 1,000 feet over them for every 10 knots of wind across at the height of the mountain peaks. So I'm starting to figure out what can realistically my safe cruise altitude be across there. So that's another one. Prog charts are super active then. Turbulence forecasting by that point is pretty good. So I can find out if there's any predictions for any significant turbulence. And then, of course, always checking the for any air mets or sigmets when we get really close inside the region of time for convective stuff or whatever.
PIREPs.
PIREPs too, as you get super close, but yeah. And then the flight briefing, which basically has all of those things plus some more,
a lot more.
Yeah, for your whole route. It's really nice how it's all kind of laid out, for your whole route of flight and everything. So, and if I'm really unsure,
we know exactly what light bulb is out where.
Exactly. If I'm really unsure, I'll call a briefer. I've done that 3 times.
Yeah, I've definitely done it a few times and kind of enjoyed it. There was something about, I think one thing that when it comes to weather, like actually calling a briefer, one of the benefits I've found from that I wasn't anticipating when I've done that is there's just something about somebody casually interpreting the information and then giving you the key bits that are formulating an opinion essentially. And when you're on the phone, you're just writing, you're forced to actually write the stuff down that they're saying. You can't just sit there and be like, oh, really? Like you gotta be with it because you want all this information to go back over. And so when you take all the notes, I had 3 or 4 pages of notes from these calls, and it was like, there's something about almost like in a school type way, where because you're taking notes on it, you're actually internalizing the information more richly.
Yeah,
maybe that's just me.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally good.
Because looking at an app is just so passive, and I don't know.
My favorite part at the end of the briefing, the last time I called for one, he said, do you want me to read the NOTAMs for your destination airport? And I said, no, thank you. I'm like, I do need to get off the phone at some point.
Yes. But yeah, and then one of the other, this is a tool that I found recently that I know I've shared with some people, but it's metar-taf.com. It is I don't know, a lot of the time with these tools, it's just about whatever interface of synthesized information kind of just works with how you think or how you visually prefer things to be laid out or whatever. The cool thing about the metar-taf.com is that if you want, you can actually customize the layout. But ultimately, while it does exist on the web and it does have a live stream capability, which is really cool, it's as close to just having a station as possible. But the mobile app, which I think maybe cost a couple of bucks or maybe not even, I don't know, but it is fantastic for just very quickly getting all the information that you want. And I like, here's the thing that I do it's I might have some weird things that I do that make sense to me, but tell me if you do this. Like, so for instance, on a tool like this, where I have all these different airports listed, depending on what I'm doing, if I like say that I'm going to go, I want to fly somewhere that is 3 hours to the east, then what I'll do is I'll add airports that are just in line, starting a bit west of where I'm starting, and then across my route, and then beyond, basically in line with what the weather is, kind of how it's circulating, just so that at a glance, in a chronological laid out view, without really drilling into anything, I can just see along my path what's happening with the conditions in one glance. So there's just all kinds of weird things people do, right?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
But come on, be more impressed.
I mean, don't act like you're not impressed.
Come on, man.
Yeah. No, I like it. So then you're at the airport. So we've got ourselves like getting a briefing. You decided to go to the airport.
Yeah.
Are there any like last minute, other than getting like the weather after you've started up in the plane and whatever, like, is there anything else that you do? Like,
oh, I never check the weather. I never listen to the ATIS. I just call up grounded and say, and I've got the weather.
That's a good trick.
And they never second guess it. You ever hear people doing this? You're like, you didn't check it.
Oh yeah.
I know exactly. You didn't check it.
Right. Yeah. That's anyway. Cool. I hear that too.
I check, there's also, do you have, what's your point of view driving to the airport? Do you have is there a point of view that you have along the way that gives you a sense of what's going on? Yeah,
I drive. So I would say we're taking off and landing runway 23 at our airport 85 to 90% of the time. And that's the direction of travel that I'm driving to the airport, basically. So I'm basically facing the takeoff direction. And typically, I mean, if we're being honest, the majority of my flights are southeast. I'm either going for work to this Virginia shore, or I'm going to the North Carolina shore for travel. So I can kind of see that general direction towards the mountain ridge. So yeah, I can kind of look out and get a general sense for what it looks like. But clouds are still tricky. I mean, even from you, it's not always easy to make an assertion of what the height of these clouds are from your, away from the airport terminal areas too. So the two times I've been burned really badly, I mean, both of them worked out fine. Obviously, one was actually a solo cross country as a student that I was taking to Lewisburg. So I had to cross the ridge there on the eastern part of, down the kind of the eastern part of West Virginia. And I ended up above a layer of clouds. I decided to go anyway, but I had to climb to a higher altitude than I wanted. It wasn't a complete layer. I mean, I always could see cracks. It was definitely more coverage than I wanted to be. It was definitely more than scattered. I mean, it was probably broken. I was wondering about halfway there, and I talked to a flight service station actually en route to ask about cloud cover ahead towards Lewisburg, and there were holes enough to get through, but it was kind of a wild experience. I may have had
25 hours
20,
or something.
20 hours of total time at that time. And that was the first time I'd ever been in kind of that situation. But that was not at all forecast, right? So and that was this like minutes before I left the airport. It was not calling for that to be the case. And of course, airports are so funny that if you ever there's YouTube videos out there you guys should watch. If you've never watched how the ceiling sensors work at airports for the METARs, it's fascinating. I'm not going to try to explain it here, but there are great videos out there on the technology. And basically, it's another grain of salt thing. Like I've had METARs from Clarksburg that said sky clear, and I'm like looking at the Clarksburg airport going like, that is not clear.
Yeah.
So that was one cloud thing. And then obviously the most recent one you guys have seen was my my flight review that we took off. And I mean, within a half hour, it went from scattered to fully overcast to minimums. And we were stuck above them and had to, thank God I had a CFII with me, and we were able to get a instrument clearance to approach back into Fairmont. So clouds are the devil, basically, is what it is.
Yeah. One time when I was stuck somewhere for a couple of days, and I think because I was calling Ben, just being like, hey, what do you think? And by the way, that's actually, before I skirt past that, I think that's actually one of the most valuable tools in your toolkit for discerning weather and go, no go decisions and all that. Ask other people, what do they think? What's it looking like to you? Check yourself before you wreck yourself. See if it's crazy or not, or if you're missing something. There's always room to have a handful of other people you trust, and hopefully one of them is a CFI. But it's even good to get non-CFI opinions also. Everybody's going to have their own point of view, and you can aggregate all that and make a better decision. But I was stuck somewhere for a couple of days, and it was it was very, very, very marginal. But if I didn't get out, I was going to be stuck for a while, even further. And I think it was Ben or somebody that said, you're just going to have to go up and have a look, and it seems so simple, but I don't think until at that point I had framed things in my mind to be, that you can use the airplane to kind of survey at the airport. Like, you can, obviously if you're in a dangerous situation, don't do that. I'm just saying,
right.
If it's like,
I don't think the tornado's that close.
If you're trying to get, what is it? Okay. So it's, it's overcast 2,300 and you're in unfamiliar territory, and you're thinking about maybe doing some scud running until because you would only have to do it for a couple of miles, whatever it might be. I'm just saying, sometimes just go, okay, well, I'm not committing to, you just don't, I always just thought that you're committing to the flight when you get in the plane, you fire it up and you go, and then there's sort of the diversion.
Yeah.
But I never really thought about it as sort of like a scouting kind of possibility where you can I'm just going to go up. If everything looks cool, I'll carry on, but I'm not going to bias anything that direction. But I need to see the long view of what's going on actually here, because if you don't have the right, you can have a cloud sensor that's playing games with you, and then you can have something where just because of your point of view at that particular airport, it might look like it's all for naught. But if you can just see right over there,
right,
it's and the only way you can do that is maybe to get up over where you can see over this hill. I don't know, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting realization. That's a weather tool, flying.
Right. Yeah, exactly. The windshield of your airplane.
Just go fly in everything and see what it's like.
Yeah.
We're not CFIs.
I do think there's honestly though, that sounds kind of like dangerous advice, but I do think
it does.
There is value in like seeing what these conditions really are. Like, you know what I mean? Like with your own eyeballs. I've gotten a lot of practical experience from finding holes to climb through. I mean, stuff that you don't really want to have to do, but I mean, I've had to do it before, and it's you don't know what you don't know until you've actually seen it. It's the same thing with, like, we've talked about that in episodes about like expanding your minimums. Like, how do you know when you can now land in like a 9-knot crosswind instead of the 5 that was when you were a student pilot, or like a 10-knot crosswind? Like you don't know until you go do them. I mean,
yeah,
some of it is just, you just got to kind of get out and do it to really see it firsthand.
Yeah. Well, and then also just, this is all under the umbrella of general aviation. Don't rely on it. Don't count on it. And we are midlife pilots. We never need to fly. We are not doing this for an income. We are not doing this. We never have to be anywhere. We can try to tell ourselves we have to be places, or that we'd rather fly, or, whatever. But I mean, nothing ever has to happen for most people that are in our situation. So I want to make sure that's reiterated. Don't do the last thing I said. How about that? Just ignore it. No, but so does anybody else have any, like, I want to see if anybody in the chat has interesting tools or thoughts or ideas, because our little monkey brains are only so powerful.
People like Wendy, the Wendy app, that's been been mentioned a few times in the chat.
I don't know what it is about the Wendy app, but for me, I have a hard time using it. It's also because I have problems, but the interface is confusing to me. That's all I'm going to say. I think it's amazing. And ForeFlight's brought in some of that stuff, which is cool. Yeah. Surface winds, all that.
So getting your instrument rating, it solves a few problems related to weather planning. It takes away some of the devilness of the clouds, and that, when you're not dealing with freezing levels that are going to be a problem in a non FICI equipped airplane, you can get out of your airport. My problem 90% of the days that I'm trapped at Fairmont is because there's a teeny little cloud layer over the airport. We'd have to be in the clouds for about 18 seconds on the way out, and then it would be VFR the rest of the way. So
yeah,
I think for that, it's extremely helpful. And cloud planning becomes, not easier, because like you said, I don't know if I'd ever really want to plan on a flight that I was going to fly somewhere for 2.5 hours in continuous IMC conditions the entire way. I just don't know that I would have. I don't know that that's super exciting for me, or that I would enjoy that at all. But at least it's one less component that completely eliminates the possibility to fly. If you're clouded in, you're clouded in. You know what I mean? And there's so many days where all you got to do is get through on the way up, and maybe again on the way down, and it takes kind of some of those cloud planning out of the equation.
So there's some people chiming in about Windy. Ben saying he agrees it does take some getting used to. Adam was talking about it's definitely worse on Android. I mean, and then One Dull Geek, I think, is not telling us, but I think he's sponsored by Wendy. I think, or he's either that or he's got a bunch of stock in the whoever it is. But he loves Wendy. He said, and he knows about it really well, and he says the web app's way better. So, yeah, that's a good point. Chris C is Wendy's a lot of data with little explanation of what it means. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's fine. I mean, I don't think that the meaning part, I suppose, is up to us, or it's not in the context of an aviation tool per se, although it does have some aviation specific stuff. I don't know. Yeah, it's a lot, man. It's just a lot. There's just, I just find myself when I'm trying to use it, like a lot of times I'm just trying to do something very simple and I can't do it. And maybe this is just where it is to get old, but it's also so a lot of the layers and the things I'm like, what? Okay, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
And you want to be able to like hover over it, or I don't know, and the explainer is not. I don't know. I guess I'm old. Am I old?
That's what it boils down to, basically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Well, weather is a topic it's kind of hard to just do a big overview, I guess, is the takeaway. It's a lot easier to get in specific, aspect of
user
it.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only other thing I want to say is just that I think that if it's questionable, if you find I'm more into like the existential part of weather, where it's like if you find that you're really concerned about it, and then you find in your sort of self-awareness that if you find that you're trying to find ways to make it work versus trying to find ways to make it not work, then maybe you need to step back for a second, because I think that there's a lot of tools, and so people will look to find the thing that supports what they want or what their idea is about what is going to happen with the flight or whatever. And I don't know. I find that if I ever catch myself just sort of being like, well, that's no good, let me look over here. I mean, there's some value to that, right?
Oh, you mean comparing
sources.
comparing between tools?
Yeah, I guess I'm just saying, yeah, but just generally, I'm just saying psychologically, when you are evaluating whether to go flying or not, if I can identify that at some point you are looking for ways to make a flight work as opposed to looking for a way to make a flight not work, then that's not a place you want to be.
Yeah, I think that's generally good advice. I don't think you should manipulate the tools that you have available to you to get the answer you want. I think it is okay to get strategic about how to make a flight work with the current weather. I mean, that's really what it is kind of about. Like, we were trying to get home from Newport News and couldn't go to Fairmont because the clouds north were going to be problematic and there was some rain and other stuff. But we literally saw an opening and got out of Newport News, and we're going to go to Charleston, West Virginia instead, because it was going to be VFR forever and someone else was going to come. Anyway, I guess the point is, like, we made a pretty quick call. Like, we were in the FBO trying to figure out, are we staying here? I mean, we had options. Like you said, you never have to go. I mean, it's not like we felt like, well, if we don't leave here, all of our lives are over. But, it was like, we used all of the tools, not in a way where we said, well, this looks better. I mean, it looks better on the Windy app. So it's probably, we weren't like doing that thing. We were saying like, this southerly route to Charleston is doable, but going north like our normal plan is not anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, we did try to find a way to make a flight work. But we changed destinations too. So I guess that's a little different, but I would totally say 100%. If you're comparing results from different apps and different sources to find the one that is most favorable to justify getting in there and going, that is definitely problematic.
Yeah, you worded it much better than I did.
It took me 5 minutes, but I got there eventually.
Well, talking has not been my strong suit today. So yeah, let's do a podcast and have a live chat and put other people through my shortcomings. Yeah. So, the one thing that I'll say, Chris, with the amount of flying that you've been doing lately is that you are not spending as much money on fuel as I am.
That is an absolute fact. That's an absolute fact. But I'm definitely, the weather is changing and I'm definitely itching. I mean, like I said earlier, I tried to make a lunchtime work and it just wasn't meant to be. I'm already thinking about, can I go at 6 a.m. tomorrow? So I'm already working on that, if that's possible, because I'm trying to make a video for you. Actually, I'm trying to make your VOR video. That
right. Asking me to make the quintessential VOR video.
Yeah. So I've been planning how I'm going to do that. And that was what I was going to do today if I could have got out, but I couldn't get away.
Man. So. I spent the amount of time I had in cruise today was good to still try to get a feel for the G5s. Will you also make a G5 video for dummies? Here's the thing. It's not complicated, but there's just nuances about it that are, I don't know.
I love altitude bugs, and I love heading bugs, and I'm not sure if yours is set up this way. I can totally show you how to do it if it's not. I don't know if you've got the little marks on your speed tape for
V
all of your
speeds.
V speeds.
Yeah.
But those are huge.
Yeah.
I think those really at a glance, I use those a ton in the 235 and the 172 now. It's just so nice to get a visual reference. Like if you're climbing out at VX and you are, just keep the X on the line. You know what I mean? It's it really, those little things to me are super helpful for just less time looking at it. It's just kind of like, oh, there it is. There it is.
From a UI perspective, I analyze these things and I just go, is this really the best? Didn't they think about this really hard and spend a lot of money in R&D to get this to be as ubiquitous and understood and universal as possible? How is it that somebody with a reasonable brain and an eye for user interfaces and technology and complex weird things, how is it that I'm looking at, I'm like, oh wait, no, okay, that's what, because obviously I don't read the manuals as much as I should. Right. But I've always had this weird thing. I don't know, maybe you're like this. I bet you're like this. I have a thing where if I get something, this should not apply to things in airplanes, but I understand intuitively how to use it enough to know, and it's backed up and whatever. So I'm not doing anything dangerous. But just generally speaking, I like to get things and not use the manual and just see how far I can get with it. Intuitively, just to get a sense of how it's designed, 100%. As opposed to, see how far I can get on my own and then figure out where I stumble. And then when I really go through and read all the documentation, I have something to base it on.
Yeah. I mean, we did that when we put the engine monitor in the 235. We were replacing, so we were able to do it ourselves because we were replacing the old circular one with a direct replacement screen. It's the same connectors on the back. So as pilots, we were able to just do that ourselves. The minute the thing powered on, and we went out and to run it up, I was in the menus. The only thing I had to look up was what the key combination was to get in the config menu. And then I was like, leave me alone, manual. And it was like pretty much that. Yeah, I do that. I do that all the time in the airplane or not. It's constant pushing buttons, but yeah.
Another random thing, now we're at the point of the podcast where we might as well just be on a phone call with each other. Right. Please chime in if you have anything that you'd like to contribute. But no, I wanted to mention to you also, I'm going to try to find the email here. Oh yeah. So
you said, oh yeah, before you had the email.
Yeah.
I can see what's happening here.
Okay. So this you might think this is dumb. I enjoy it when you don't disagree with things that I say, but you are just kind of nonplussed. Like you are. I seek your approval, Chris, and this is just this is just how it goes, man. No, but I want. And I'm going to have in my airplane during the annual, since we're doing the autopilot and everything else, I'm putting in an annunciator, an audio annunciator for the stall, because it's just a stall light. And let me tell you, you can't see that thing. You can't see it. And here's the moment when I realized it. That this is not, and we can make basically an inline thing, but there's an STC, $30, it gets done in 5 minutes. That's how easy this is to solve. I was in the pattern the other day and I was being extended really far on downwind for traffic. And as you get further and out, the terrain really starts to come up and it's unnerving. I don't like being at pattern altitude when you get extended out that far. And usually what happens is you started beam the numbers, you start your descent, you've maybe gotten down to 1,400 feet, out of at least the pattern altitude there, it was 1,500. So you might drop 100 feet, 200 feet. Then now you're at 1,300 and they're saying, you need to extend. So then I'm going, I've got flaps in. So I'm going full power to start climbing basically. Because it's like a go around that's happening on the downwind. But at the same time, I don't want to go too far either. So you're kind of just negotiating slow flight, right? Yep. And balancing, all that. But then I forget what it was, but there was a couple things going on where they had me looking for somebody that was on final, and then there was somebody that was overfly. Like there's a bunch of things happening where I needed to be looking, and I was flying, flying this way, and I'm having to look back, almost behind me, right, to see all these things that they're asking me to see, and that I want to see. And in that process, I'm looking. I'm not looking at the panel.
Right.
And I looked back, and I'd only gotten maybe to like, I don't know, 75 knots or something, but still, like that was. I could feel that I kind of nosed up by looking back for a long time and trying to figure out stuff. I could feel it. And then when I looked, I was like, don't like that. If I had a stall horn, not that I got to the stall.
Right. You wouldn't have said anything that time, but yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's something I decided that.
That's cool. Good.
Do you approve?
Absolutely.
Does your 235 have a stall light or horn?
It has a horn.
Can I borrow it?
I mean, it'd be probably tough to put in. It's electronic though. Like the one in the 172 is like a whiner. It's like a separate thing. The one in the Cherokee is a beep. It's in the speaker or the overhead speaker. Beep. It's a beep. Electronic noise.
Oh, the ultimate though is the Cessna Reed.
Yes,
it's just a wind instrument.
Those. I love the 150 has one.
Yeah,
it's super cool. Hey, before we wrap up, I want to promote the next episode.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we got a big one.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a lot of fun. I think episode 34, which we will record on Wednesday, May 4th or May 3rd. Wednesday, May 3rd at 8:00 Eastern. Our guest is going to be Gareth. Who's 03 Delta on YouTube and on all the social media. He's a Florida dude. He has a really cool, fun YouTube channel. He trained with Lou of Ludix Aviation to do his private with Lewis. And so that's where I first found him. And then he started a cool channel that I've followed ever since it started, really. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
His videos are very well put together.
Yeah.
And his wife is also a pilot, right?
She also, then did her training. Pilot Rachel on Instagram and other social media. His wife got her private as well. And I think they're working on instrument stuff because I saw an Instagram story the other day of shooting approaches. So I think one or both of them are. So I'm sure we'll talk about that some on the next episode as well. So
cool. I very much enjoy his humor, and his video making is great. So
I very much enjoy his accent. So I'm looking forward to that.
Don't you feel like that you'd just be further along in life if you know what I mean? I'm not saying an accent gets you things for free, but it kind of does.
Yeah. I think it's helpful.
Yeah.
No, he's a good guy. We've interacted a little bit, and I'm looking forward to talk to him. Just I've never really heard his whole story, kind of of his whole aviation thing. I know it's in his family too, kind of like yours. I think. So I'm pretty excited to kind of just hear his background and spend an hour talking to him.
And his plane was overseas or something, and then it was being. I don't know. We're going to find out all the things.
We'll learn all the things. So he should be a great guest next time. So if you've got questions for him, maybe go check out his channel ahead of time if you haven't. 03 Delta on YouTube, and come prepared to pepper him. I'm sure he'd love to hear from everybody.
All right. And then real quick, Tuomo says he told me to get an AOA indicator.
Yeah, I love those too.
Of course, I'll start crowdfunding that immediately. Nobody, Backcountry 182, man. That guy. Oh, geez. He's got a really cool new video. If you haven't watched his channel, that's another person. We should get him on.
Yeah, we should.
And he's got a cool accent.
Yes, he does. We should. Oh, man. All right, let's put that on the list here. Write that down in your notebook.
Put it down. Is there anybody else that you guys think that we should have on this podcast?
Yeah, make a list.
Speak your mind real quick because we're about to roll.
Well, that was quick.
Yeah, people seem excited about Gareth. That's cool.
Yeah, I think so.
All right,
sir. Well, thank you for potting. It was a good episode.
Yeah.
Thanks to everyone who hung out with us late into the evening in the chat. And I guess we'll see everybody in 2 weeks, and we'll hang out with Gareth.
Awesome. Can't wait. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.